the things that I wanted to talk about is one, why raising our consciousness is the most important thing, and what the light codes have to do with raising someone's consciousness. So, could you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, as you know, being my son, I've been channeling the Angel Raphael for 37 years. And I guess it's like 3 or 4 years ago now, the light codes came in. And I got this incredibly intense download from the Angel Raphael, and I was just flooded with so much information that I was just up with my notebook, like writing, 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 writing. And at first it was 33, and then it expanded to 55. And Raphael was like, "Okay, we're ready. The consciousness is ready now to take everything to a whole new level. And in order to do that, we must expand as much as possible, as much light in the body, which is why a lot of people say we're stepping into our light body. And and so the codes are coming from not only our galactic core, they're coming from within the inner earth, they're coming from our sun, they're coming from our Milky Way and other energetic universal systems as carrying seeds of information and light that when we receive the transmissions and the transmissions come through, um, a lot of people will feel a shift energetically in their body. A lot of people can't stay awake, they'll fall asleep. But what's happening is we are opening and allowing our cells to move from carbon to crystalline, to receive more and more light, to expand our consciousness and to encompass way more on an energetic level than we ever have before, which begins to shift our perception, and we begin to move away from this closed, contracted way of being that's much more isolated in our individualism, which had its deep purpose, into a much greater understanding of us as a collective whole and moving into unity consciousness and the perception and recognition of everything and everyone as ourself, which then puts us in what we call a flow state. And when we get into that flow state, that's when the synchronicities and the magic and the beauty and the abundance begins to expand. Now, what's interesting, and I know I'm rambling, so I'll stop in a minute, but about that is that as we're in that process, right, and we're moving from 3D into 5D, it can at times be, as I was saying, I think on the call a few days ago, where you're in that place of magic, synchronicity, and beauty in the 5D, and then you kind of drop down energetically into more of the concrete 3D world. And it can be a bit jarring as we're moving between these realms and we're integrating all of it into one.
Right. And so something Raphael says all the time is hold it, hold it, hold it, right? Because it's about holding that frequency. And a realization that I had, I was talking to Tyler on the phone, and I was just like, I've just been in so much joy, so much bliss, so much happiness, so much peace and flow and creation, etc. And he's like, what's really the dealio? And like, what is it? Is it the journaling? Did you do a new routine? And when I started to think about it, what I realized is that this light has been coming on the planet and into me and into all of us all this time. And I think part of the ADHD that I really struggled with when I was younger was actually my nervous system not having the capacity to hold the light and needing to tune away from that to not have my circuits feel fried. So that's like the hyperactivity of like, oh, what are you're and then we got to distract ourselves, right? Because the nervous system isn't there. And through the light codes, my nervous system is expanded and I've been able to create more spaciousness and hold that frequency on a more consistent basis. Like when we had that channeling session, Raphael said, it's evened out. Like I've balanced out of like I was going into real highs and then real lows, but it's now my nervous system has expanded in order to maintain that level of light. And I think that we're all going through that expansion, but would you say that's what the light codes kind of do in a way?
Exactly.
Yeah. You said exactly, or?
Yeah, I lost you. The volume went out for a minute, but that's exactly what's happening is that we're integrating, right? All of these different energies. And for some of us on our journey in the beginning, and I know for me as well, and I remember when I had to go to the Raj and just like get a massage for 21 days, I had taken in so much light, so many codes, so much information that my nervous system couldn't hold all of that light and love, which is almost seems crazy, but it took some time. I had to like really have downtime and spaciousness and quietness to integrate all of that. And for you right now, you've had I think a period of time where you've been more, quiet and in a place of solitude and isolation, which kind of allows for that integration to take place.
It does. And part of it is the structures of consciousness that were fragmenting my consciousness, like our societal constructs and our beliefs about the world and all these kinds of stuff had fragmented my consciousness. And with an opportunity to be away from the indoctrination of those beliefs from other people, it was easier to melt away those constructs and like open up the flow of consciousness inside of my nervous system. So there weren't any belief systems guarding, consciousness from flowing through my nervous system like they might have been before, like the voice of someone else's judgment on this or that, or an opinion about this or this kind of behavior. And yeah, that spaciousness, I think, is huge, right? In being able to integrate that.
It's huge, and I love that you're bringing up the constructs, right? And the belief systems in our society and where we're anchored. And, somebody had mentioned to me that I care about deeply that they had a certain view for a moment about the work that I do, because let's face it, it's out there, right? It's cutting edge, if I could say that. Maybe it's not everybody's cup of tea. I happen to be this weekend at a beautiful wedding, and I certainly won't be sharing with everyone what I do, because it's not necessary. It's not necessarily appropriate. It doesn't fit in this particular construct. And not that I'm ashamed of it, but there can be this feeling of, oh, being judged in comparison to perhaps a much more conventional construct of how most people are operating and still in this reality and this world. And when we keep dropping into those and we're not able to assimilate and really own and feel totally comfortable in who we are in ourselves and in our skin, it can be more difficult, kind of puts up energetic blocks to be able to assimilate as much of this light, and really step into this expansive consciousness. Because those old belief systems or concerns about what other people think start to come up. And that can block or get in the way of us really stepping into the states that we're working toward now in 5D.
Yeah, because in a way that is armor that we don't need. And what's interesting about this time that we're living in where it feels like there are so many threats, it seems that that might be what we need to evolve in order to transcend the illusion of that duality that there is an actual threat, right? Because it's heightening our fear to the absolute maximum, and we're all armored up, and we think we're going to have a collision, but then there isn't, right?
Exactly. Like we're all in preparation for this catastrophic event that we keep jumping that timeline into higher frequencies and it's not unfolding. But yet part of us is still like, oh, any minute it could be right there. And that's where Raphael is like, oh, please stop, keep bringing your attention and your energy and your focus and your vision to what it is you are wanting to create and to holding that higher vibration and not dropping it down into that fear. And yet the yada, yada, yada that we can gather around and talk about and think about and worry about, is a familiar construct that we're all familiar with. And, we'll notice such on YouTube. If you say, the world is ending, 1,000 people will watch it. And if you say, we've entered 5D and it's all love and light, people are like,
And what's next, right?
yeah, fine, whatever. I want the juicy stuff. And that's where, where we're really working now to say, okay, can we hold that higher perspective, that higher vision?
Well, yeah, and the part of the so when you look at YouTube, oftentimes I notice my tendency to go and look for like, oh, here's 100 positive comments and there's one negative comment. So what is that tendency, right? It's because that's where we believe we can find the feedback in order to grow. But really, what the like codes are is feedback in how to grow in the positive, of how to master the skill set rather than what skill to begin learning, right? And so
Exactly.
it's a whole nother we have to focus on how great everything is, not where we deficient that we need to improve. Because there is no deficiency. It's letting go of the illusions of deficiency, letting go of the illusions of unworthiness and lack and etc., right?
Exactly. And just really coming into the acceptance, surrendering and allowing and loving ourselves. And some of the simplest things that people can do is just when before you get your feet on the floor in the morning, what's your intention for today?
Mm.
Like what are you really intending it to be like? What do you want it to feel like? What do you want it to look like? We know all this, but how often do we jump out of bed, the alarm goes off, we have to be somewhere, and we don't take that time? And our intention is one of the most powerful things that we can do. That and just taking an extra second to find one tiny thing that we're grateful for shifts the whole frequency for the day, opens up spaciousness, puts you in the flow. And it's these simple things, that when we do it together, it makes a big difference.
Right. And we all know intention, presence, gratitude, these are the keys to evolving our consciousness. But what gets in the way of that is our inability to accept things the way that they are, right? Because we're holding on to our prediction making machines, which is our fear that is there to keep us in our survival consciousness, that if we can't predict what happens next, our circuitry short circuits, right? We go and so accepting what is a huge, what I realize is there were instances in my life where very hard things happened, right? And the reason that they came into my life was to increase my bandwidth for radical acceptance of what is. And so when people talk about all of these what ifs, I'm like, well, that is going to be an amazing, interesting period of growth. It's going to be an experience. We're here to be alive. We're here to play. And that can seem insensitive to people. And so that was something that I struggled with of like I didn't want to share with people that I live in almost a play paradigm at this point because I was like that could seem insensitive to other people's pain. But for me, in the play paradigm, the objective of the game for when I interact with someone who is in deep suffering, which there's a lot of deep suffering, is the objective is how loving, kind, compassionate, and nurturing can I be to this person? That's that game, right? And there's all these different games that we get to play, and life presents the landscape in order for us to play that game. Because I remember in one of the most difficult moments of my life where I had been up like for a week straight, I was in hiding in a closet, and I was we you'll remember, but I was like, this is it. Like the way that I started to move out of that pit was I was like, this is it. This is the thing that I've been preparing for my entire life. This is the test, right? And
Oh,
it's how loving and compassionate and firm and kind and strong and loving can I be to the greatest for the greatest good of all right now in this moment. And then it became a game and
hmm.
everything worked out where it seemed
Everything
like
worked.
everything was going to like my whole life was going to be ruined.
It seemed like I know the moment. It did seem that way. And I have to say, you were unbelievable. And I know I'm your mom, but like, wow, to watch you in that moment with that situation that you found yourself in and to be able to just hold so much compassion, so much steadiness, so much strength. And those are the moments where life gives us those opportunities to show us what we're about and how we are going to react in those situations and who we are going to be and how we can walk our talk, right? Because it's one thing to walk our talk and say all this stuff when everything is going, beautifully. And it's another thing when the shit hits the fan, basically, right? It's like,
Hmm.
okay, can we hold that bigger vision? Can I be in compassion? Can I see the perfection in what appears to be something awful where my entire life can implode? And those
Right,
are the
because those are the constructs crumbling that, and those constructs have been limiting your perception to see how abundant you are, how safe you are, how victorious you are, how loving you are, how kind you are, all of these kinds of things. And you have to bump up against them in order for them to completely shatter so that you can actually have that remembering. And so we're going to be moving into a code up next that is all about reactivating our remembering. Can you tell us a bit about that?
exactly. I'm having, just so you know, I'm having a little technical difficulties, but hopefully you can hear me. In a hotel room in New York City. It's 11:11 and the television has just gone on. So I don't know if you guys can hear that. I'm not sure how to turn it off.
A little bit, but not much. Don't worry
Okay.
about it. Just talk over it. It's not a big deal.
So anyway, in terms of the remembering, yeah, but we have there's all different levels of remembering. So people can be in therapy for years and remember in this lifetime trauma and need to bring that to the surface in order to clear it. But then there's remembering that's way beyond this lifetime. Like we've got the Akashic records. Oh, wow. It is
Yeah,
really,
just take a minute. It's okay. Everybody will forgive us and just turn the TV off.
I have no idea where the
Just get up and look. It's okay.
okay,
People are forgiving.
I
It's
know.
it's all a rehearsal, like I said in the beginning.
Okay, hold
We're
on.
not on stage, it's a rehearsal. We're all rehearsing to play the best version of us that we can. All right. Well, while we're waiting for that, let's all just take a nice deep breath.
Okay,
Audible exhale.
I did
Oh,
it. I did it. I
you
did
did
it.
it.
Um, so what were we talking about? Remembering.
Mm-hmm.
So we can only remember at whatever bandwidth on an energetic level or wherever we are in our state of consciousness that we can take in so much remembering, if that makes any sense. And
Mm-hmm.
so with the Galactic White Horse light code, which now is the 26th light code that we've done, it is the most expansive. Now someone's at the door. Um, I think I'm gonna have to answer the door. Hold on.
Who is it?
I don't know.
It's the Galactic White Horse knocking.
It's a comedy show. Okay, so what were we talking about? Oh, remembering.
Remembering.
Um, what we're going to be doing is so expansive that I don't even know, unless I'm channeling, that I can even begin to share it. But the best that I can describe it is that we're going to go into spaces and places and remembering in that is so expansive all the way out into what we call the galactic core, and then all the way down into the inner earth itself, where we're going to bring up codes of energy and information that brings us back to the remembering and connection with our star families, with lifetimes on other planets as star beings, um, as lifetimes and energies where we were just sound. And
Hmm.
we took time just being in the frequency of sound or the frequency of color in these beautiful fractal patterns of the beginning of creation, where we were creating and dropping seeds to merge with matter and form in order to bring alive like this reality that we're living in now. But we're so engrossed in the beauty of this reality that we created that we forget. we are in this time of forgetting of why we created it, how we created it, who we created it with. And so the galactic white horse is going to be a vehicle that we will really ride into the cosmos through these seven rays, attuning to what we call the Elohim, into this fractal, beautiful diamond mirror in that comes as close to touching source as possible, to come into this deep remembering of the creation process itself, and how all of this that we're experiencing came to be, and who we were at that core, and all the gifts and capacities that we had, and that we have forgotten about, and bringing them back online. And in
Mm,
addition to that, we're going to travel with the galactic horse into these etheric realms and into these records, not like just the Akashic records that we've all know well and have talked about for so long, that carry all of the records of all of our lifetimes on the earth, but the records of our entire energetic system, of our galactic families, of our lifetimes beyond this realm. So it's a very, very expansive um, light code, and it will require people to really expand their consciousness and open up into spaces. Raphael calls them light envelopes, that they haven't opened in a long time, and delve into very magical realms of creation.
right. And in a really simple form, I remember, did Gracia tell you that story about how like the galactic white horses and the Pegasus were transmitting the messages, and then they wanted to come up with their own messages, and then their planet was destroyed, and the whole theme around that? Because
Yeah.
the way that I see that theme, because that's related to what we're doing, right? Before I
Oh,
keep going.
100%. Yeah.
And with what you just said, to kind of simplify this, is they desired to be something that they weren't. And in the desiring to be something that they weren't, they destroyed part of what they were. And part of the process that we're going through now is finding the forgiveness for desiring to be other than what we were, and finding the perfection in what we are, and how to amplify that even more as into what we want to be, right? So instead of wanting to create the message because they want to access creativity, it's about delivering the message with as much creativity as possible, right? And that we all have our generative purpose in the correct context, and to appreciate that, to love that, and to forgive ourselves for punishing ourselves or deeming ourselves as unworthy or whatever because we weren't some idea of something else.
Exactly. So a lot of it will bring the frequency of forgiveness in. And that forgiveness will come in from coming into awareness of all lifetimes on the planet, or our need to be something other than what was, and forgiveness of lifetimes such as we'll be working with Lemuria, with Atlantis, with lifetimes on Adromedon, with the Pleiades, right? All of these frequencies, and begin to unify them into a space of full acceptance and love.
Ah, beautiful. Well, that's great. I feel complete for today. How do you feel?
I feel good. And I want to thank everyone. This was a impromptu thing that we decided to pop on. So thanks for the humanness in everything that took place from the beginning of the video to the end. We're just all human living our lives. So thank you.
Love, love, love.
Love, love, everybody. Have a beautiful Sunday wherever you are. And I love you so much. Mwah.
Bye bye.